Hi guys, I'm back today with another build video, my first build video for the Stonethorn patch. I'm sorry it's been a while since I've done my last build video. To be honest, towards the latter weeks of the Greymoor patch, the meta was fairly stale and I didn't have any kind of creative ideas for new builds during that time, so I was eagerly awaiting the multiple set changes we've seen with Stonethorn, and I've got lots of new ideas for new builds, so you can expect more regular videos from me going forward. But I just wanted to try and put this build video out fairly soon. It may end up being a bit shorter than some of my other ones, just because Magicka Nightblade, in particular this Magicka Nightblade, is very well suited to fighting in the Imperial City. And as most of you know, there's the double Telvar Imperial City event going on right now. So I wanted to get this video out fairly promptly. So just a couple of disclaimers before I get into the sets and things. Mechanically, this build can be quite complex to play. You have to keep track of quite a few things, but in terms of the sort of conceptual design of this build, it's fairly straightforward. It's much more akin to a PvE DPS rotation than a lot of other builds, which tend to be a bit more reactive. And so despite the sort of mechanical complexity of some of the different potions, etc. with this build, it may be a fairly good build for someone who is used to doing a sort of dummy parse rotation, because that transfers over to this fairly well. So this is an Argonian Magicka Nightblade build. It's very important to be Argonian. I'm afraid you can't run this particular build on any other race, and you'll see why just in a second as we go into our stats. Getting into our sets, we're running two different 5-piece sets. So on the front bar we are running the Inferno Staff of Medusa. Again, this is something that I know a lot of PvE players have been farming because this set got a big buff during the Stonethorn patch, but this gives us a ton of critical, as well as on the 5-piece giving us full uptime on minor force, giving us increased critical damage. We combine Medusa as a Inferno Staff along with Jewellery, all infused with a reduced potion cooldown glyph on each of them, alongside Torug's Pact. Now, Torug's Pact is a long-standing set, but it's again gotten a buff during the Stonethorn patch, and it boosts our enchantments even more. Now, a lot of people were heralding that Stonethorn is going to be the era of proc sets, but we've gone one step further. With our Torug's Pact, our shock glyph on the front bar becomes very beefy, doing 7k shock damage, and this is a proc that goes off every second. So you're doing, in addition to everything else you're doing, you're getting this huge shock damage glyph going off on top of that too. So just to summarize, Medusa Inferno Staff, Medusa Jewellery, 5 Torug's Pact in the body, and then we're running Slime Craw as a monster set. There's no point running a proc set because we're investing so heavily into crit damage. The proc sets obviously can't crit, so we might as well go about boosting our enchantment as much as we can. And then on the back bar we are running a Maelstrom Staff. This is a non-perfected Resto Staff. Obviously you can, if you've got the perfected staff, by all means run that instead. I have burnt myself out in VMA many years ago, and I don't see myself going back to that place anytime soon. So non-perfected Maelstrom Restoration Staff on the back bar is absolutely fine. As you can see here, the increased weapon and spell damage glyph on the back bar, boosted both with Infused and Torug's Pact, is a very beefy 655 for 5 seconds, and we can effectively have 100% uptime on this because of the combination of Infused alongside Torug's Pact. So essentially the premise of this build is to stack as heavily as possible into crit chance and crit damage. Enchantments can crit, whereas proc sets cannot. So that's why, alongside the buffs to crit damage that Nightblade has received this patch, stacking something like this works very well. Getting into our skills, on the front bar we are running Elemental Drain, Mass Hysteria as our stun, Swallow Soul as our spammable. Now there's a fairly pathetic tooltip on this, but don't worry, this build packs plenty of damage. Merciless Resolve. Now this got changed with the Stonethorn patch. So instead of giving you a mitigation bonus, this instead gives you a big boost to your critical damage and healing, up to plus 10% for each, with the more light attacks you do, which stacks very well into the rest of the build mentality. Phantasmal Escape, this is essentially Magicka Shuffle. It's a Nightblade exclusive, and it's a very, very powerful skill. Not many skills give you 25% mitigation against anything, and this applies to a lot of ultimates such as Dawnbreaker, Leap, as well as Templar spammables such as Jabs. Very, very powerful skill. We're running Soul Harvest as our front bar ultimate, and there is a logic to the bar setup. We're stacking as many assassination skills on the front bar as possible, so we've got 1, 2, 3 assassination skills here, which gives us plenty of extra spell crit, which is important. On the back bar, we're running Degeneration for a major sorcery buff, Shadow Image as a mobility tool, Rapid Regeneration, which when combined with our high crit chance and the Maelstrom Restoration staff gives us a fair amount of magicka back as well whenever we cast this. Siphoning attacks, this helps us with our health sustain as well as our magicka sustain, and because it is a siphoning skill, it allows us to have the max magicka bonus on both bars active. We're running Shadowy Disguise, this is the morph that turns you invisible, and our back bar ultimate is Light's Champion. This is the morph that gives you increased critical damage, and this can last up to 13 seconds because the Major Force 8-second buff refreshes every time you get healed by this, so you can have effectively 13-second uptime on this, and this is a huge boon for this build as well. Looking at our character page, the character page isn't particularly impressive. We've got a very basic spell damage here. When we drink a potion, you can see that our crit on the front bar is nearly 66%, which is 2/3 uptime, so we're critting a vast majority of the time. We have got a decent max health pool, fairly minimal spell damage and max magicka, and fairly minimal magicka recovery as well. But the combination of Argonian as well as 3 potion cooldown reduction glyphs gives us plenty of sustain. Now, to get onto the important part, and the thing that makes this build so effective, is the sheer versatility that you have with regards to potions. Now, there are 5 potions that I want to take you through, and this is essentially what gives the build the ability to react to different situations, as well as maintain almost 100% uptime on a number of very powerful buffs. So, I'll get into it. So the main 2 potions that you want to be using are fairly expensive, I'm afraid. So the main 2 potions that we're using, the first potion is made with Dragon Room, Lady Smock, and Namir's Rot. And this is a potion of Spell Crit, Expedition, and Major Magicka. Now this is the potion that we want to have active every second use. So every second potion should be one of these, and this gives us the Major Prophecy buff up at all times. In between that, we use a Vitality potion, which is made using Butterfly Wing, Powdered Mother of Pearl, and Scrib Jelly. This gives us Major Expedition, gives us health over time, and Major Vitality. This gives us in-fight tankiness, which is very, very useful. And as you can see there, with our 3 glyphs, we've got a 22-second cooldown on our potion. So the Major Vitality lasts a good portion of that, and because both of these main potions that we're using give us speed as well, this build is extremely mobile. The third potion that we use is a slightly cheaper potion. It's a basic speed pot. Blessed Thistle, Butterfly Wing, and Scrib Jelly. This is a cheap potion that you can pop in between fights, which still gives you good mobility, as well as giving you some heal over time as well. The next potion that we want to use in fights where you're either being snared all the time or you want to try and stand your ground, I find this particular potion extremely useful. It's made combining Mudcrab Chitin, Mountain Flower, and I believe Bug Loss. Yep, so it's an armor potion with max health. This allows you to become very tanky and stand your ground. And then the final potion that you want in your tool belt is a Detect potion. So that's made with Wormwood, Cornflower, and Columbine. it gives you immovability, stealth detection, and a bit of magicka back. This is very useful when you know there's a Nightblade around, because the combination of stealth detection to find them and the stun immunity to start attacking them without being interrupted allows you to take out enemy Nightblades with ease. So with a 22-second potion cooldown, what you can effectively do is you can have 2 potions active in the space where you would normally only have time to do 1. And the reason this works obviously so well with Argonian is because whenever you drink a potion on Argonian, you restore a chunky amount of resources as well as health. So we're doing this twice as often as we would normally be able to do due to our infused alchemy cooldown reduction glyphs. In addition to that, being a Nightblade, it synergizes extremely well with our catalyst passive. We're effectively doubling our ultimate gain rate using this passive, and so we get our ultimates thick and fast, especially when combined with Soul Harvest, giving us 10 ultimate whenever we kill anything, effectively. Especially if you're fighting in the Imperial City, where there is a mixture of mobs, NPCs, as well as players, you're going to have ultimates pretty much back to back. The other reason this particular build is effective in Imperial City, more so than a proc using Magicka Nightblade, is that monsters obviously don't have any critical resistance, so having high crit chance and high crit damage is extremely effective in that situation. But because of the sheer amount of crit damage that we bring to bear on this build, we remain very effective against enemy players as well, which is obviously important if you're going to be facing both mobs and enemy players at the same time. Getting into our champion points, we're running 56 Warlord, 9 Sprinter, 1 Siphoner, 64 Arcanist, 27 Tenacity, 28 Shadow Ward, 52 Tumbling, 33 Befouled. This boosts the damage of our Soul Harvest, 37 Blessed, 72 into Elfborn. We've stacked this very, very high because our crit damage and our crit healing forms the majority of our offense and defense respectively. Elemental Expert and Spell Erosion, 66 Master at Arms, nothing in this tree, 56 Ironclad, 49 Resistant, 43, 43, 40 with 9 in Light Armor focus as well, and then 27 in Quick Recovery as well as 3 in Expert Defender. A couple of miscellaneous bits and pieces. So as you can see, we've got a very extensive potion tool belt here. Our food is bewitched sugar skulls, and our mundus is the shadow mundus, which increases our critical damage and critical healing. Now, I think just showing off the build and the potions might be a bit underwhelming with this build in particular, because the raw stats don't appear particularly high. So I'm going to segue into some combat gameplay just to demonstrate, one, the rotation for this build, and also then go into some gameplay clips where I'm fighting people in the Imperial City. So I will see you in the combat clips in just a moment. Okay, so just to clarify, if anyone was confused about what I meant earlier when I was saying that this is a mechanically difficult build but conceptually quite easy, by that I mean that mechanically swapping between multiple potions on a 22-second cooldown to ensure 100% buff uptime can take a bit of muscle memory, but in terms of what you want to be doing in a fight, it's generally fairly straightforward. You've got a preset plan, and that plan involves always ensuring that your weapon damage, your weapon and spell damage glyph is active. This can stay up the entire time, as long as you're doing a light attack on your back bar every 5 seconds, as well as then maximizing the number of light attacks that you're doing with your front bar as well. This is the majority of the damage. The thing here is we're not really relying on our spammable to get the majority of our damage in. It's actually just the light attack itself. So we can happily be casting buffs. As long as we're light attacking in between each buff, we're still doing a ton of pressure damage just because of the high crit chance, high crit damage, and the beefy shock damage enchantment that we've got on our front bar. So, just to demonstrate these things in action, when you light attack, you can see there that that glyph activates. And as soon as that glyph goes down, you can see that as long as we light attack again, the glyph activates again. So that spell damage is very important to keep up at all time. And as you can see here, if I'm just light attacking on my front bar without doing a skill, we're still getting a ton of damage just with every light attack. And as you can see, we can be light attacking every second, and that is continuously working for us without a problem. So the two potions that you want to be using are your Essence of Crit, which is this one here, and your Vitality, Speed, Lingering Health, which is this one here. So yeah, just make sure that you're swapping between these every use. So to start off a fight, what you want to be doing is drink your potion, light attack, yeah, let's try that again. Come on dude, calm down. Make sure your buffs are up to begin with. Light attack, degeneration, front bar. Light attack, skill, light attack, skill, light attack, skill, light attack, skill. Back bar, light attack, rapid regen. Front bar, light attack, skill, light attack, skill, light attack, skill, light attack, skill. Back bar, light attack, degen. Front bar, light attack, skill, light attack, skill. Make sure your potions are up. Light attack, skill, light attack, skill. Back bar. Do you see what I mean? You're doing a preset rotation on the front bar and the back bar, and this is why I was saying it might be fairly accessible to someone who is used to doing sort of a PvE rotation. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I didn't do a very good job there of swapping between my potions, but that's the other thing that you want to be doing while you're playing this build. Anyway, that's just a quick combat demonstration. Just to summarize, make sure your back bar spell damage enchant is up, and make sure you're doing light attacks in between every skill. You don't need to be spamming your Swallow Soul too much. You can cast that, and in between times just look to see what the opponent's doing, but just make sure every 5 skills on the front bar is then followed up by a skill on the back bar. Anyway, let's get into some gameplay clips against some actual players and not against annoying teleporting wannabe Lord Wardens. Okay, so probably the first question you have is, why do I want to spend lots of gold on expensive materials when I could just run Kalurians and Zaan? Well, let me just demonstrate the difference between this build and your typical Kalurian Zaan Nightblade. Kalurian Zaan Nightblade doesn't have the sustained damage. It's a sort of all or nothing burst. In these two clips against such a Nightblade, you can see that due to our potion passive, we've got the versatility to use this detect pot at our own leisure, and if the Kalurian build fails its burst, or even if it succeeds in its burst, it doesn't have enough follow-up damage to secure the kill, whereas we've got the sustained damage to clinch it and then win out the fight. The next question you should always ask when you're looking at a Magicka Nightblade build is, how is it going to function against Magicka Nightblade's age-old nemesis, namely the tanky Magicka Dragonite with wings? Now, as we know, wings used to reflect, now it just halves damage from projectiles, but the beauty of this build is that the majority of our damage comes from our enchant, which doesn't count as a projectile, it counts as a direct sort of damage on the enemy. So even though this Magicka Dragonite is trying to flap its wings, trying to stay alive, we can just keep on it and keep on pressuring it. This again is the beauty of running Phantasmal Escape as well, Magicka Shuffle. There's lots and lots of AoEs, Grothstar, jabs, etc. And being able to have that Magicka Shuffle instead of Race Against Time gives you a lot of tankability and a lot of staying power. This is especially important on a Nightblade because it's AoEs such as that are going to take you out of your stealth. So you've got the option of stealth for single targets and Phantasmal Escape to mitigate the damage against AoEs. These two clips just showcase the build 1v1 against Magicka Templars. Magicka Templars have obviously very high healing power and they can purge away a lot of negative debuffs, but despite that we've got such consistent sustained burst damage that we can take out these really high PvP rank Magicka Templars with ease. In this next clip you see me stuck in the middle of a sort of group engagement between a group of reds and a group of yellows. The yellows appear to outnumber the reds here, so I start engaging on them first, throw a light attack into the open doorway, and it manages to finish that guy off. Now admittedly these guys are not the highest level, most of these guys are not max CP, but it just goes to show you if you're fighting players who aren't max CP, they go down extremely quickly. All the previous clips were against max CP characters, I believe. Anyway, The one thing I do fairly poorly here is I don't manage my stamina extremely well. If these guys were hitting a bit harder, I would have been quite nastily punished there, but I get a bit lucky. We pop the restoration out just to give us some tank ability, and we finish off the 2 yellows, and then disengage just because I've been a wee bit spooked by my low stamina bar, and then we will go on to engage these reds later. This next clip is a slightly longer clip. I've just stumbled upon this group of reds who are engaging on this district boss. Now, Magicka Nightblade is not Magicka Sorcerer. You're not holding your ground using your shields to mitigate the damage. You still need to play like a Nightblade. This build is fairly tanky and can survive burst, but what you want to be doing is use your stealth, use your speed to your advantage, and draw the fight out into a series of 1v1s, 1v2s, etc. And that way you have the advantage. We run no AoE on this build apart from Fear. So as you can see here, I'm just sort of singling out targets. This Magicka Warden is using his Shimmering Shield, which again would reduce our damage normally, but because so much of our damage comes from enchants, it's not really reducing it too much. I've just fast forwarded this clip because nothing too much happens there. Once again, we engage on one target, get them riled up, get them to follow us. Once we're ready to burst them, we just go into their face, Fear, and burst. Surprised here by a Nightblade. One of the trickiest things about this build really is maintaining your proper potion usage. It's something that even after playing this build for quite a while I'm still struggling with somewhat, but once you're able to get that down, the build will flow much better. Having the sort of potion cooldown reduction passive just gives you so much flexibility. You can adapt to whatever you need to be doing in the fight. If you need speed, you've got speed. If you need tank ability, you've got tank ability. If you just want some extra spell crit and detection or what have you, you can do that too. It really feels like you're Batman pretty much. You've got a utility belt full of tricks, and you can use them just as the sort of situation dictates. Anyway, there's 3 guys left here in this red group. I'm sort of singling them out one by one. The boss is giving me a hand with these little poison pulls. I see this guy go into his Eye of the Storm. I don't want to be caught in that, so I just sort of kite it out, using my stealth to my advantage. He hasn't looked after his health very well, so I go onto him and finish him off. This last guy is a fairly tanky necromancer with nearly 40k health. I see him start to go into his clown form, and I'm just kiting that out. No reason for me to engage when he's got 60 odd k health. Easy enough for me to just wait that out. And once he drops out of his form, I can go back onto him. He's fairly tanky, but as you can see, we've got so much sustained, consistent damage that we will eventually get him down. He blocked my spectral bow there, nice block by him. But I'm afraid he doesn't have quite the survival to survive that. So we've taken out that red group, and now this boss is all ours. Now, this final clip I'll sort of just let run. It's a bit more of a chaotic fight. I get caught between, again, a red group and a yellow group, and I have to use my wits to sort of survive. Remember, try and play to the Magicka Nightblade's strengths even. Try and engage in 1v1s, use your speed, mobility and stealth to disengage when you're in trouble. Keep up your rotation. Practicing the rotation on a trial dummy probably is a good idea, actually, just to sort of get that down to muscle memory, so you're not having to think about that as well while you're fighting. But anyway, I'm going to let the rest of this clip run. If you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Like I say, I'm going to try and put out some more build videos. Work has been a bit more busy recently, so I've been struggling a bit on that front, but I'm very excited about a lot of these set changes in Stonethorn. So I'll try and update some of my Greymore builds, as well as put out some builds for the classes that I neglected last patch. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please remember to like, leave a comment if you've got any questions, subscribe and follow, and I'll see you next time.